All right, welcome. Today we're diving into a really powerful idea from James Clear's Atomic Habits that might just flip everything you thought you knew about self-control on its head. Get this, what if breaking your worst habits has almost nothing to do with willpower?
I mean, think about it. We're always told to just try harder, right? To be more disciplined, to just resist the temptation. But what if that's the wrong approach entirely? What if the people who seem to have the most self-control are actually playing a completely different game?
So, where does this wild idea come from? Well, our story actually starts in a pretty unexpected place. Not in a lab, but right in the middle of the Vietnam War. And it all began with a shocking mystery that would completely change how we understand addiction.
Okay, so picture this. It's 1971. A couple of congressmen go to visit U.S. troops in Vietnam, and what they find there uncovers a massive crisis, one that sends absolute shockwaves back to Washington.
20%. That's the number that had everyone freaking out. See, research found that nearly 1 in 5 American soldiers in Vietnam was addicted to heroin. This wasn't just a small problem, it was a full-blown epidemic. The White House was bracing for hundreds of thousands of addicts to return home.
So they put a researcher, Lee Robbins, in charge of tracking these soldiers when they got back stateside. Now, back then, everyone believed heroin addiction was basically a life sentence, permanent and irreversible. They were all expecting the absolute worst. But what Robbins discovered, it defied every single expectation.
Okay, just look at this chart. It's incredible. That bar on the left, that's your typical relapse rate for heroin user after they go through treatment. A staggering 90% relapse. But now, look at the Vietnam vets. 9 out of 10 of them kicked the habit almost overnight. Their relapse rate was less than 12%, even 3 years later.
So what in the world was going on here? How could so many people just walk away from such a powerful addiction with what seemed like no effort at all? I mean, were these soldiers just a bunch of superhumans with unbelievable willpower? Well, the answer turned out to be much, much simpler and way more profound.
Turns out it wasn't about willpower at all. In Vietnam, the cues for the habit were everywhere. You had the constant stress of war, easy access to the drug, and friends who were also using. But the second a soldier boarded that plane home, he landed in a totally different world, a world without any of those triggers. When the environment changed, so did the habit.
And this incredible finding just completely demolishes the willpower myth. You know, this whole idea that having a bad habit is some kind of moral failing, and if you just had more self-control, all your problems would magically vanish.
And modern research totally backs up what that Vietnam study hinted at. The myth is that disciplined people are just built differently, that they have this heroic, ironclad willpower. But the reality? It's that they're just smarter about setting up their lives. They spend way less time in tempting situations to begin with.
Which leads us to this fantastic quote from the book. The people with the best self-control are typically the ones who need to use it the least. It's just so much easier to say no when you rarely have to. The real secret isn't wishing you were more disciplined. It's about building a more disciplined environment around you.
So why is avoiding temptation so much more powerful than resisting it? Well, to really get that, we need to take a quick peek at what's happening inside our brains when we form a habit.
Okay, check out this story from the book about a therapist named Patty Alwell. She had quit smoking for decades, but back when she did smoke, she also used to ride horses. Years and years go by, she hasn't smoked, hasn't ridden. Then one day, she gets on a horse again, and boom, an instant, overwhelming craving for a cigarette. That old environmental cue was just sitting there in her brain, dormant, waiting to be switched back on.
And that's because once a habit carves those little mental grooves into your brain, they're pretty much there for good. You might not use them for years, but the moment the right cue pops up, that urge can come rushing right back.
There's actually a scientific name for this: cue-induced wanting. It's this automatic, powerful craving that gets sparked by something outside of you. I mean, scientists have shown they can trigger this desire in an addict's brain just by flashing a picture of a drug for 33 milliseconds. That's too fast for your conscious brain to even know what it saw.
And this is exactly why trying to just resist temptation is a losing game. Sure, you can fight it off once or twice, but it is exhausting. Over the long haul, we are all a product of our environment. Trying to stick to a good habit in a bad environment is, well, it's pretty much impossible.
So if resistance isn't the answer, what is? Well, this is where the book gives us a solution that is just brilliantly simple.
It's called the inversion of the first law of behavior change. So the first law for building a good habit is make it obvious. It makes sense, right? So to break a bad habit, you just flip it on its head.
Make the cue invisible. Instead of focusing on fighting the urge, you focus on removing the trigger.
It's so practical. You don't want to eat junk food? Simple. Don't buy it. Don't have it in your house. Trying to cut down on screen time? Put your phone in another room for a few hours. When you remove that one single cue, the whole habit can just fade away because it never even gets started.
So let's be really clear here. Self-control is a short-term tool. It's for emergencies. You might be able to fight off temptation every once in a while, but you can't be expected to summon a fresh dose of willpower every single day. Your energy is so much better spent just optimizing your environment. That's the real secret. Make good habits obvious and make bad habits invisible.
And that's the big idea we want to leave you with today. What if you stopped asking, how can I be stronger and resist this, and instead started asking, how can I redesign my world so that resistance isn't even necessary? That one little shift in perspective, it can be the key to finally breaking free,